Someone a few days ago asked me, what's this San Angelo Area Conservation Education Initiative? What's it all about? When you distill it down, we would be referring to those societal benefits of different human needs that are produced on these private lands, things such as clean air, clean and abundant water, food and fiber that's produced on these healthy landscapes, the function of biodiversity, including wildlife, and the recreational benefits of those things, the emotional and spiritual values that are tied to these resources, the financial economies that spin off of these things. We have proven to ourselves in recent years that these resources and their products are not inexhaustible. One of the greatest challenges that we face globally, including right here in our own backyard, is natural resource conservation. To address that, it fundamentally starts with educating kids, educating adults on the basics of natural resource conservation, including the role that private landowners and private land stewardship plays in this space.
TWA understands that you can't just put a fishing pole in a kid's hand, plop him on the side of a pond, and expect him to become a conservationist. There has to be an educational component, and TWA is a master at that.
Texas Wildlife Association's Conservation Legacy youth programs come in a variety of options for the both informal and formal student and teacher. Everything from distance learning that we beam into their classrooms to a youth magazine that we send out all across the state and even the nation. Then we have our Wildlife by Design presentations where we have our conservation educators on the ground going into classrooms about 3 days a week, seeing between 10 and 12,000 students each. And then we also have our discovery trunks, so footlocker-sized kits full of skins and skulls and lessons. And then to top it off too, we also have our land, water, and wildlife expeditions. So those are for middle school students where we work with their entire grade level. We educate their own science teachers, and then we take them out for a field day on private property within about an hour of their school.
It's vital that all Texans are connected to the land. It's where our clean water comes from, where our food is grown, and it's where the iconic wildlife species of Texas call home.
But with population growth across the state, we've become more and more disconnected from the land that we cherish and depend on. If you don't understand something, it's hard to value it, and it's hard to take care of it. So at Texas Wildlife Association, we're trying to create connections to the land for Texans and help them understand the very important role that private landowners have in the health, abundance, and sustainability of those natural resources.
We really focus on two areas, what we call hunting heritage and conservation legacy. We took over 2,000 kids hunting on over 200 and some odd hunts. We've also started to focus on taking adults that have never hunted before. In 2023 alone, we reached out to over 380,000 children across Texas. There's a big disconnect these days between school children and adults and our lands. And so we're trying to mend that all back together and teach these kids about conservation and natural resources.
The centerpiece of this initiative is the San Angelo Area Conservationist of the Year Gala. And with that, we're shining the light on an individual or a family whose investments into private land stewardship and community development have resulted in values and cultures and the success of this part of the state. And we hope to use that recognition to inspire the success of this initiative.
Granddad Powell was born in 1899, and I believe they were living in Everman, which is near Fort Worth, and his dad ranched out farther west. In the 20s, Granddad started his operation, and then he started passing things down to the next generation, and then subsequently even passed some down to the grandchildren.
We spent our life out here. It wasn't like on weekends. And memories from breaking horses to marking lambs with the headlights of your vehicle. Unless you've done what ranchers have done, or what we've done, you quite don't understand it.
So he started homesteading land. He got the ranch down on Bear Creek. It's in Menard County. He began taking with him some cowboys, and he'd take care of their families for the period that they were with him. And they would go with him and homestead property next to his. Well, this put together at least 12 sections that made a fair-sized piece of property. As time goes on, your problems develop. Some are solved. The family needs to be trained. If you own it and you produce it and it's what you need, then you really have a great pride in being there and having that opportunity.
I love the wildlife. I enjoy growing big deer, but to continue succeeding, you have to start looking at all other sources of revenue also. And that's when you start just sitting in on conversations, whether it's solar, wind. I mean, if you're gonna survive, you gotta continue to be progressive. The largest challenge we have, amongst several, is land fragmentation. It's the loss of agriculture and then the abuse of water on those, for lack of a word, ranchettes. It just adds up, and I think this program that this is all focused for, with a teacher educating the younger generation, water and use of water has got to be addressed, and hopefully we'll understand it.
Conservation work has been done on all of it. We rotate the livestock, let the grass grow, and then go back and graze it.
I think my grandparents' legacy really is not only did they leave land, but they left a culture that's passed down. How do we protect the land, and also how do we provide proper husbandry to what lives on the land? This is really good ranch country, and it's God's gift. We need to protect it. This is the natural resource that needs to be protected.
People that want to change the Constitution, they hadn't been through a lot of issues that they should get through. It allows that freedom. And that's something you need to protect, and the next generation needs to learn that.
Today, our part of the family operates a registered Hereford and commercial cow-calf business, along with Ramblay sheep and a hunting operation as well here in Schlacker, Menard, Tom Green, and Sutton counties.
Not only have we kept what property he had, we've increased our land holdings. Nana and Granddad would be extremely proud of what we've done.
I want to congratulate the Virgil Powell family for receiving this San Angelo area Conservationist of the Year. I couldn't think of a better family to receive this first award. The children, the grandchildren, the great-grandchildren, they do so much for the community, not just San Angelo, not just the surrounding counties, but around the state of Texas.
They have been instrumental in the success that we experience today in agriculture, and it's because of his hard work and dedication to his faith, his family, his community. He had a wonderful, strong work ethic, and he believed in sticking to it, getting it done, and not quitting. And that's just kind of the West Texas way that the rest of us embrace also. When
we had our first meeting, we surfaced a number of different individuals and a few families that we thought were very deserving of this inaugural recognition of this award. But it was an overwhelming consensus that the Virgil Powell family was the ideal family to recognize this year.
On behalf of the Virgil Powell family, we would first like to thank Greg Simons and Alan Curry in their efforts to make this night possible. We'd also like to thank all the committee members that have been involved in this over the past several months. We would also like to thank TWA and their support to help start the San Angelo Area Conservation Education Initiative.
Our country and our great state of Texas and the greater San Angelo area have all been built on the sweat of the brow of private land stewards, community leaders, and enterprising people like those that we are recognizing this evening. And as long as we have people like that, tomorrow's generation will continue to have a fighting chance of enjoying the freedoms and the values that enrich our society beyond measure. And we're so grateful for everyone's support for this conservation education initiative.
Granddad was all business, but he had a lot of fun to him. He was a fun-loving guy. And we were there at the house, and Granddad said, "Mort, can you drive me down to the train depot?" And he said, "Pull over there and pull in the parking lot. I want to tell you a story about what happened right here on this site when I was 10 years old." And he said, "It's a story that I have never forgotten, and I never will." And he said, "We were out at the ranch at Andrews. Daddy came to me and said, the men are going to drive all these yearlings that we have gathered up in the trap, and they've got to drive them to the depot here where we are and put them on the train the next morning going to Fort Worth. And I think it would be real good if you went." He was real excited. He got up early, and his mother had everything ready for him to take on his horse. And he got with the men, and they gathered the trap. Off they went. So when we came across there with the cattle, it was smooth sailing. We went right on in, and the men knew that their job was about finished. So that night, boy, they were drinking, and they were raising heck, and they had a big fire going. And he said sometime in the early morning, he got woken up, and they'd set the depot on fire, and it was burning, and the only thing they could do is step back and watch it burn. And he said, thank goodness the train was on time. It showed up at daylight, right at 6. And they loaded those cattle out to Fort Worth, and off the train went. And he said, boy, the men were quiet, and they gathered up their stuff, got on their horses, and started riding back home to the ranch. And somewhere out here, I remember I turned around and I said, look. I turned around and I said, look back at the depot. Everything's gone. We burned the depot down, and there's not anything standing. And that one of those old cowboys been up all night. He said, yeah, we burned Odessa down last night. And we were in the car looking back at all the tall buildings downtown, and Granddad goes, how many people live here now, Martin? I said, I think there's close to 90,000. And he said, 90,000. I remember when we burnt this place down, and he hit his hand on his leg and just laughed.
He never did spank me when I was a child until he heard me say the word I shouldn't be saying. I can remember one time when that happened, and he took me outside and really whipped me. That's the only time I ever had to feel I heard his belt click when he took it off. You know how it pops? I remember that. And I never said that word again, still don't.